Hello everybody and welcome back to Cool's Book Reviews. Today is December 15th, and while to a lot of people that might just be another day of December, to a small community in West Virginia, across the Ohio River to Ohio, as well as to the family and friends of the 46 individuals that lost their lives on December 15th, 1967, today definitely has a different tone. Somber, tragic. Perhaps the words are not enough for what these families have felt. I know those of us from Colorado can definitely relate, being that we've gone through Columbine, the Aurora Theater, as well as that Boulder King Soopers, tragedies within the community and the state. We can definitely relate to the feeling of tragedy and loss and sorrow. And a lot of times with these tragic events, I think we only really think of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But a huge thank you to Mark Eddy for, really showcasing this book to us, Bridging the Tragedy, Silver Linings in the Mysterious Ohio River Valley by Bill and Jaci Kousoulas. Because it really opened the idea to our group of post-traumatic growth, or how people have been able to grow after tragic events. In this case, the collapse of the Silver Bridge over the Ohio River on December 15th, 1967. Now, the bridge itself was a suspension bridge, and the design that ended up being built was slightly different than what had originally been planned. The eye-bolt design that they ended up going with was a little bit cheaper, and didn't have as many redundancies in case something were to happen. Now, unfortunately, with one of the eye bolts, there was a microscopic fracture. I think the measurements were like 0.1 of an inch, a tenth of an inch. Something that you'd really only be able to see under a microscope. Now, as this fracture grew over time, it had been open for some 40 years, the people inspecting the bridges really wouldn't have been able to notice this due to how they inspected bridges, which we'll get to as we discuss the book. And it's just a tragic event, and I wanted to be able to talk about the bridge and the events, and definitely this book. We were lucky enough to interview both Bill and Jaci on Cool's interview, so if you haven't seen that now, click that link above. As well as they came on for a sci-fi super show to talk more about Mothman. See, over time, people have connected the legend of Mothman with the bridge. Whether it was something trying to warn the people of the imminent bridge collapse, or maybe it caused the bridge collapse. We've heard stories from either side. As we get into the book, we'll discuss it more as far as what some of the people Bill and Jaci interviewed thought, but it definitely seems like at least the bridge itself collapsed due to the structural engineering failure of the eye bolt. And so for you guys, this is actually my second reading of this book. For that interview we mentioned earlier, I actually had already read the book, but I wanted to reread it and see how it stood up. And so a lot of these notes and thoughts, some of them I might have brought up in the interview, but a lot of these were newer notes that I took while reading it the second time. And so, stay tuned. Let's see how it held up, and if I still enjoyed it as much as I did the first time. So let's take a look at the book. Now, on the cover here, you see Bridging the Tragedy, Silver Linings into the Mysterious Ohio River Valley, as well as both Bill and Jaci's names there. I really like the cover art of this. Just really nice, really sticks out to me. It just looks really, really cool. I know while reading this at work, definitely got a couple people saying, hey, what is that book? And so I was able to recommend it to a couple more people. On the side, we got Bridging the Tragedy, and then Bill and Jaci's names again. Of course, on the back, we got a little bit to get you interested in the book, and it right here flips the narrative that Mothman is evil. Like I said, there's some people that think Mothman caused it, and there's other people that think Mothman was trying to warn people. And then there's other people that just don't want either connected. So it was a very fascinating read. And there's the ISBN if you need it. So the book itself clocks in at 299 pages. And you can see as I flip through the book, it's really just writing, no pictures throughout. But we will talk more about that at the end of the book. There's actually a surprise at the end of the review, so definitely make sure you stay tuned. So something that sticks with me is really the picture of a super cold night. Very dark, the water reflecting the moon, the water reflecting the stars, and Christmas presents drifting slowly atop the waves. There's something about this that really stuck with me both the first time and this time reading it. It's something I talked to Bill and Jackie about. It's really haunting, and obviously with the time of year, it's almost Christmas time. It's supposed to be something that's really happy. We're bringing families together, but unfortunately for the 46 individuals, families, and friends, Christmas, birthdays, around this time just carried a much heavier weight. Some other things that I noted as I was reading, but I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm just going to kind of go over some basic notes that I took, and I'll tell you who exactly, what section it came from. So the first kind of notes that I talked about, I mean obviously I talked about the presents because that came up a few times, but we'll go to Denny Bellamy. And Denny said you didn't bring up Mothman after the bridge fell. It just wasn't funny anymore. And so, while people knew of Mothman, some of the interviewees said they even went looking for it. Some of which said they just thought it was birds. People were seeing birds because that's all they found. They themselves didn't see Mothman. Around the bridge collapse, obviously, life became a lot more serious. And people weren't worried about a cryptid or a being from another dimension or whatever Mothman is or was. You know, Denny brought up the Big Bang Theory and kind of how he went over the room test, which I thought was fun. Sheldon's roommate test. Denny also said that Mothman wasn't an animal because somebody would have shot it. You know, especially around deer hunting season, there's so many people out in the woods. Somebody would have shot it, just like Bigfoot, and so couldn't have been an animal. Denny also talks about UFO that he thought he had saw, but it turned out to be a stealth bomber. But something that Denny brought up was that real UFOs might just be us from the future, and this is something I know me and Sam have talked about, and I think some of our other guests. It's just always been an idea that intrigued me. I remember at one point I had seen a article about what humans would look like if we keep evolving as we are, and with different things that might happen in the future. And it does kind of sound similar to what people describe as the Greys. So perhaps, yeah, UFOs could just be us from the future. It's an intriguing idea. Some other notes I took came from Jimmy Wedge, where Jimmy talked about buying a Big Bird outfit and to chase teenagers, or parkers as he called them, obviously doing some activities, and talked about how friends would come up to the side of the car and kind of shake it, and then when the people would look up, they'd just see this like big bird flapping its wings. So one of the ideas was perhaps the Mothman sightings were Jimmy. Jimmy also talked about Nashville, Indiana, which is a place I've been to. We went there on one of our trips with our cousin Steph, my Aunt Irene, my Yaya, when we went to IU Bloomington. I remember we stopped in Nashville. We saw the 9/11 memorial that they had there and ate lunch there. So I definitely know where Nashville is. And a lot of times when you say Nashville, people obviously think Tennessee. It's not something I hear mentioned often, so I took note of that. Speaking of IU, Bob Knight was brought up, which we just had that video. Obviously, with the passing of Bob Knight, my cousin Scott talked about his time at IU and his encounter with Bob Knight. Now, earlier I kind of talked about the inspections, and that brings us to Marva Bailey. Another note I took was that inspections were just kind of done by drive-by. They'd kind of drive by, and if they didn't see anything visually, not very well inspected, yeah, must have been good. Some of the people even said, yeah, they probably just drove, didn't even look, went and had coffee, drove back. And so, yeah, those are just a couple brief things. It was really interesting, especially seeing a lot of people that learned what post-traumatic growth was, I included. But more importantly, seeing the story of the people, that lived through this, that were affected by this. I think this tragedy really, to a lot of people, has been overshadowed by Mothman. I think a lot of times when people talk about the Silver Bridge, it's more in passing. And it's just, yeah, the bridge collapsed, but Mothman, and then Mothman did this, and and it kind of gets just swept under the rug. So I really enjoyed that this book told a lot more of the human side. If you're looking for paranormal stuff, it's going to be in there. If you're looking for a human side, it's going to be in there. If you're looking for history, it's going to be in there. Even some psychology, it's in there. I mean, it is a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. It's my second time reading it, and it held up beautifully. Like, sometimes I worry about going back to a book I really enjoyed because I'm like, is it going to hold up? Perhaps with nonfiction books, they hold up a lot better. And it shines a light on a tragedy where, like I said, 46 people lost their lives. And how many people, out here in Colorado know about this? Unless they were alive at the time, or unless they were affected somehow. They had family on the bridge, or family friends on the bridge, and they've heard it passed down through the generations. People might not know it outside of the connection with Mothman. And so I think that was really nice to see that emphasized and really bring to light the people of Point Pleasant, the people that experience this, and keep their stories alive. I love telling stories on the channel, and I love that this book did that. It's really, really good. I don't want to spoil too much. Like, I want you guys to go read it. I think you guys will enjoy it. This is one of those rare books that I know when I do the eventual tier list at 100 reviews, this is going to go up in that S tier. But where does it rank among my top 5 favorite paranormal books that we've reviewed on the channel? So these are the books that it's going up against. And I'll tell you, in 5th place, there's a tie between Max Hawthorne's Monsters and Marine Mysteries, as well as Phil Hall's The Weirdest Movie Ever Made. Number 4, Ghosts of Lincoln. Number 3 is Early 20th Century UFOs, American Sightings, 1900 through 1919, Notorious and John LeMay. And actually, I think it would fit right here at number 2, because it is fantastic. Honestly, I'd give this at least a 9 out of 10. And I'll explain why only a 9 out of 10 in just a second. Number 1, still Ghosts of Chicago. A little bit biased there. Love Chicago. Lots of history and ghosts. Bridging the Tragedy, though, has a chance to come back and take that number 1 spot. And you may be wondering, well, how is it going to come back and take the number 1 spot? Haven't you already read it twice? Well, there's actually a revised, updated edition, illustrated as well, that just came out. So here's what the cover looks like, and I'm really excited. I'm going to dive into this one. It might be a couple more weeks, but once I look over that copy, I will let you guys know perhaps some of the differences, what I enjoyed, and if it takes the number 1 spot. Right now, though, solid 9 out of 10. Like, I do highly recommend this one. It is fantastic. And I think if you look at the other books that made my top 5, you can see that I really enjoy reading about the paranormal, but I love history. And all those talk a lot more about the history than they do the paranormal, but the paranormal's still there. I guess just because of what we do, I'm a bit more harsh on paranormal books, so when I really enjoy one, like I did with this one, it's good. Alright, like I said, at work I've recommended it to people. Just through conversations I've recommended it. So please guys, go in the description below, go on Amazon, wherever books may be sold, and pick up a copy, Bridging the Tragedy. I really enjoyed it, and I hope sometime I can go visit, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, not only for the Legend of Mothman, but also to pay my respects. We've heard nothing but good things about Point Pleasant from Bill and Jaci, as well as our friend David from Abnormal Voyages. Those 3 have told us really wonderful things about the town, and so it makes me definitely want to go visit more. And I definitely hope you guys pick up this book, because I think you guys will enjoy it. But until next time, for more Cool's book reviews, click that link to your left. For more about what we're doing here at Cool's Paranormal, click that link to your right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know, A, have you read this book? And B, did you hear about the Silver Bridge collapse or Mothman first?